Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Time for our KFIR, which means in Hebrew Young Lions, Middle East Update. And it's the week of June 6th, looking back over what transpired over this last week in the Middle East, primarily Israel. Just a reminder, make sure you grab the PDF PowerPoint that should just be available on the YouTube link there, or go to our website at holygroundexploration.com. Okay, we always start off with our news bites. Last week, if you remember, it ended this massive day of prayer and fasting for Israel by Christian Zionist believers, and they were at the southern steps, and they, in a sense, had an encounter with protesters and primarily religious Orthodox right extremists, and pushing, shoving, some minor incidents taking place. The mayor, one of the mayors, basically came out and supported what seemed to be this demonstration, not the violence, but in a sense, Christians, mind your own business and don't try to convert Jews. That's kind of the mindset. Well, Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana, in addressing this situation, is quoted as saying, "I would like to emphasize that shouting at people who are the great supporters of Israel is very counterproductive. I would like to take this opportunity to apologize for this behavior on the behalf of the Knesset. My friends, all I have to say to you, and this is addressed to Christians, thank you. Thank you for what you do for us. You are our true friends. Thank you once again." And this again, Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana. Again, news bites. So we kind of shift gears. Taylor Force, the Taylor Force Act. We've spoken of this quite a bit over the years. Taylor Force was a veteran of the U.S. Army, graduated from West Point. Bottom line, he was a terror victim in Israel. If you've ever been to Israel and you've walked that pathway towards Jaffa, he was knifed to death on that pathway. And one of the things that has come out of this is what's referred to as the Taylor Force Act. And this is a bill, this is a law that Congress has passed that basically prohibits any U.S. monies going to Palestinians in regards to this pay for slay. Because, as you know, the Palestinians that are imprisoned for terrorist activities receive monthly stipends for their acts. They've been paid to slay. Well, over the years, we've given millions of dollars to the Palestinians, and every so often this rises to the surface, and it did last week, where U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, her name is Barbara Leaf, on Wednesday she confirmed that the Palestinian Authority continues to make so-called pay to slay stipend payments to terrorists and the families of terrorists who have killed Americans and Israelis. Once again, this is bubbling to the surface. Ted Cruz, I know, is pounding his fist saying this has to stop. Once again, we're dealing with a pro-Palestinian Biden, and I'm not sure it ever will stop, but again, news bites. Thought you would want to know. This week in Israel, and I've talked about this in the past, when we first started going to Israel, I would say 20 plus years ago, I remember for Sharon and I on our very first trip, we couldn't wait to get to the Temple Mount. we'd get up on top of the Temple Mount, and it was me, Sharon, and a friend of ours. The rest of the group had left, and we didn't know any better. We went everywhere. We went into the mosque. We went on the Golden Gate to the top of it. Our friends tell us now we could have been in prison for the stuff that we did. We were just happy-go-lucky. Oh, this is it. This is the Temple Mount. And in sharing with people, especially our Israeli friends, the bottom line is many of them didn't care. No interest. In fact, do whatever needs to be done. Let the Palestinians or the Arab or the Jordanians have it, as long as we can get peace. And then from time to time, we'd continue as we took trips, brought people to Israel. We'd go to the Temple Mount. We finally decided a few years back, it's just not worth the time and effort to go up there. For us, there just is a real sense and presence of demonic activity there. And the amount of time it takes to get up there is just not worth it for us to do that to those that have joined us to experience Israel. But needless to say, my point in all of that is 20 plus years ago, no interest, not true today. Interest in the Temple Mount has grown steady over the last decade, despite the threats of Arabs. And what was once just a sparse few, last Sukkot, that's, remember, Pentecost, a few weeks back, last Sukkot saw the largest amount of Jews ever ascending to the holiest site in Judaism. The Temple Mount, as you know, was liberated in the Six-Day War in 1967, but unfortunately, it was handed over the care. Not so much the policing, but the overall responsibility for upkeep and care of the Temple Mount area was given to the Jordanian Waqf. They were left in charge of the site, and they routinely harass Jewish visitors, attempting to throw them off the Temple Mount for various infractions. Riots transpire, but bottom line, Jews are once again concerned about the Temple Mount, and it's growing. So put that one away, put it on the shelf, because we'll be coming back to it, I'm sure. Interesting days in which we're living. And then the two-state solutions back on the table again, with all of, we talked about this last week, with the talk about the Saudis kind of normalizing their relationship with Israel, coming into the Abrahamic Accords. Bottom line is that Israel's going to have to pay something in order to make that happen. And what Biden's administration is demanding of Israel is, once again, two-state solution. And Bibi is going to be backed into the corner saying, if you want this, then we need to see tangible evidence taking place and a movement beginning to actually divide the land. All of this goes back to Obama, okay? Joe Biden's speechwriters are really following the narrative of their true boss, Barack Obama. Make no mistake about it. This pendulum is swinging, and Bibi's going to have to decide what price he's willing to pay for this normalization with the Saudis. Again, been there, done that as far as Israel giving up land for peace. It's never worked. And we talked last week about Bibi having to look in the mirror and seeing Ariel Sharon and knowing that the giving up of Gush Katif, the giving up of Gaza, what did they get in return for that? Missiles raining down on Israel, over tens of thousands of them. Never forget that the Hamas charter never calls for peace. It calls for the obliteration of Israel. Bottom line, the Palestinians do not want land for peace. They want all the land, and they want to drive Israel to the sea. That's the bottom line. And these, as I mentioned, are the days in which we live. Tragedies took place in Israel this last week. Israel lost 3 members of the IDF: Staff Sergeant Ohad Dahan, Staff Sergeant Ori Eluz, and Sergeant Leah Ben Nun. These 3 IDF soldiers were killed in a shootout between the IDF and a terrorist carrying a Quran, you do the math there, who is believed to be a member of the Egyptian armed forces, and this took place at the Sinai border. Not so much that there's a gag order in place, but details are still coming out regarding this tragic event. And then we look to the north. That's the Sinai. That's the south. We look to the north. And an article that I read from the chief of the Hezbollah let me get this right, parliamentary bloc, Muhad Rayad. Again, they have elections coming up. And this actually is from an article from Carolyn Glick. And she says, this is probably the most honest statement that I've read in a while from Muhad Rayad, the chief of Hezbollah. He says, the Lebanese presidential election, the Lebanese presidential election, it is not about the candidates, but it's about those whose interests are in Hezbollah, or they call it the resistance. That's the heart of the matter. In normal countries, the statement would have been presidential elections is not about the candidates, but about who best serves the interests of Lebanon. But to Hezbollah and Ra'ad, the resistance is the priority over Lebanon. Therefore, the bottom line is, and the money, the arms, and what's needed will grease the skids, in a sense. And keep in mind, whoever is serving as that person in that place does not serve the Lebanese people. He will be serving the Ayatollah who sits in Tehran. Bottom line. And sad but true, a cartoon to end with. Israel, it's amazing if you're a sports person, Israel's just going crazy over the success of their under-20 World Cup soccer team. Okay, they are now in the finals against Uruguay, who just beat the United States. And this is unbelievable for Israelis to think that they're in this championship match of soccer. We'll call it soccer, they'll call it football. But the cartoon just says, Israel's rivals at the U20 World Cup prepares for the center semifinal, and it goes on to show the picture of the coach saying, just bring signs for and against the judicial reform and let the Israels fight one another. Sad, but true. The one thing that I always have felt with Israel is a sense of camaraderie and oneness. The linking of arms, the standing together, knowing that if we don't stand with one another, we have too many enemies out there, we'll cease to exist. But as we all know, the devil has a strategy, and that strategy is simply this: divide and conquer. And through this whole judicial reform, Israel is split into 2 factions and very susceptible at this particular time. We need to continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I don't know what the future holds, and you probably know what's coming next, but I do know who holds the future in his hands. God is in control. But as his people, we are going to stand and we're going to pray. Pray that Jewish eyes would be open, and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. As usual, last reminder, we still have 2 seats left for our Journeys with Paul tour, October 1 through 12. We'll go to 3 of the churches in the book of Revelation, Ephesus, Pergamos, and Smyrna. And then we'll make our way to Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea, Corinth, Athens, and then from Athens, we'll fly to Rome. So we refer to this as our Journeys with Paul. We're excited about this trip. And so, as I mentioned, we only have a few seats left. Check it out. Everything's on our website. And then back to Israel. Our next tour to Israel, we refer to it and call it Revealing Israel, will be February 21st through March 1st. 10 days, 9 nights, life-changing tour to the land where it all began, Israel. Pray about joining us. That's it for this week. God bless you and shalom.